Do you like conversation on a variety of topics? Feel like no one wants to talk about the things that interest you? Tired of only hearing the same political, sports, or catastrophe talk? Yeah, we feel that way too. Join two high-functioning geeks as they discuss just about anything under the sun. We can't tell you what we'll be talking about each week because we don't know where our brains will take us. It will be an interesting conversation though, so hang on and join us. Here comes the Relentless Geekery.
Brought to you by Mind Architecture. Building worlds for your mind.
I like the shirt. Nice shirt.
Got spamware. I think I've mentioned that Colleen and I have been all over Ohio, and we ventured down to Johnson Woods, which is a beautiful stand of old growth forest that we take hikes in. And Orville it's right near Orville, and Orville is where I've already got the story wrong, the Smuckers family store is and stuff like that. And I was going to say that Spam is one of their brands, but no, I think I actually got this at the Spam Museum, believe it or not, in Minnesota. So,
Nice.
yep, I don't mean to start telling stories like, oh yeah, back when that church was on the corner before they tore it down, you turned there. So anyway,
Right.
but it
So
always
how-
gets comments. People always notice the spam, and everybody has something to say about spam. You know what I mean? So
How many times do they start singing?
exactly, they got to give you the Monty Python thing, and I know they used to have like little straight out of the can, and they'd stick some cloves in there, and that'd be like dinner. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everybody has. I know that it's hugely popular in Hawaii and in the Far East, from what I understand. It really is almost like gourmet things are done with it, whereas I always thought it was one step above anything that the GIs can carry. That
Ramen
no matter
noodles.
the environmental conditions, you can eat meat. You know what I mean? So
I've had family members that think it's the greatest delicacy to make macaroni and cheese and put Spam on top.
and put spam in it. Exactly. By going to the Spam Museum, they had a wonderful history of it, that it really was developed for the war, that they
Right.
wanted to have something that for sure would not spoil. And they found a way to cook it and then under pressure seal it in cans so that it would not, otherwise meat starts to rot and go gamey and stuff like that in days. And they found a way to make it that our troops could eat meat and keep their strength up. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because it's questionable what meat they're using, and they put so much salt and chemicals in it that it's gonna last as long as Twinkies.
If I remember right.
Oh, did I die?
Okay, sorry, you're freezing a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
you froze a little bit. Yeah.
No
It's,
idea.
sorry. They actually at the museum make a big point of saying it really is mostly pork shoulder and like identifiable animals. It is not 3/4 pound varmint that we happen to get off the road or something like that.
Which actually may sell well in some parts of the country.
Right. And it's funny. I don't think we've talked about this before. It's worldwide, and they make different kinds of spam based on the culture, so that you'll get, like in Hawaii, it probably has like pineapple combined with it, but there's a spicy version and a Thai flavored, Mexican flavored, Australian, maybe there's some Vegemite involved, whatever else it might be. But they have 3 dozen different spams to try. And they had little spam singles, a single slice of spam in a sealed pouch. And I bought half a dozen of them just because I was really curious as to what is each country's spam like. And of course, I suggested they should call it a spingle, and they haven't gone with that yet. A really a spam single should be a spingle. So another neologism that if it comes, just throw me a nickel, world, for coming up with spingle. So the museum was so much cooler than I expected. I didn't know anything about spam except, hey, it got that cool little key that goes around the can, but there's actually technology involved in doing that, and that whatever that weird jelly is that goes with it, it's, you know what I mean? They actually this is part of the process that, you know how things are. In order to make it perfect, it costs a ton of money. In order to make it excellent, it ratchets back. And so they said, if we're going to make 1 billion cans of spam and a little jelly gets in there and it isn't inedible, it just looks odd. We're just going to go with this. What do we need? We need 100,000 cans right away because we're fighting the war. You know what I mean? And so all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. So there are enough about spam, but it's cool.
It's like going over to Hershey, PA with all the chocolate, because you don't realize until you go through the whole system, which I was disappointed that they only had pictures of the factory. You couldn't go stand on a platform. But anyway, that there's like coffee and other things, there's different types of cocoa beans that provide different flavors, and they actually have different mixtures for the different products. And I'm like, I never thought about that. So then you start tasting it. That does taste different than this one,
Exactly.
you know?
This is more bitter, more. And in fact, Colleen and I are not really food tourists. We don't go specific places to be able to get a certain meal. But I always, while I'm out of town, I love trying the odd, interesting things that they have not only around the United States, but around the world. So I was in Germany with my parents. This is like back in the late 70s, and I had like wild boar. And wild boar, it's not pork. It really is a different beastie, and because it's wild, it doesn't taste like grain fed or whatever we do for it here. I love things like that where you get to try. Where would I have gotten that besides somewhere in Europe where it's still served like that, or and all the spice combinations and stuff. So chocolate is one of those things that whenever I'm trying to think of who first discovered it and then brought it back to Europe, was like an Aztec thing, right? They used it almost like an additive for coffee, if I remember right. And as you might imagine, not only by taste, but by, wow, that's loaded with caffeine. And you know what I mean? People love that kind of stuff. So just to try that around the world, and maybe even certain odd things, like I just mentioned, Vegemite. I've had Vegemite and Marmite, and they're not to my taste, but you know what I mean? If that's part of the culture, when I was in, again, Europe with my parents, we were all around the Scandinavian countries, and I tried herring every day for breakfast because when they don't have it here in the United States, same with they don't have the little mushrooms that are part of an English breakfast stuff. And I kept wanting to like herring because I really like food most of the time, but it's like preserved herring. So it's really like chewy, like rubber band chewy. And no matter whether they creamed it or mustarded it or pickled it or whatever they did, after the initial taste of the sauce, then it was just like trying to chew this thing. And I've never taken to herring, and I don't seek it out. Whereas like sardines and kipper snacks and stuff like that, they have a distinctive taste. And once in a while, we never, I think your body is wise in that when you need something chemically, it'll tell you, wow, I need magnesium. And so go get me some spinach or something like that. I don't know if that's really one of the ones that's rich in it. Vitamin K, I know that's spinach. And then all of a sudden I'll have a taste for like sesame chicken. Now, I don't know what's in sesame chicken, but it must be that my body says you need some trisodium sesamate. And so it tells me, go get some sesame chicken. That's got to be around the world too, is that as people needed citrus, the limeys were actually named that because in order to make sure that they didn't get, which one is lack of citrus? Goiter is iodine, scurvy is lack of citrus. So for all those long ocean voyages or bad situations, like the Germans had sauerkraut and the English had limes, and whoever, the various different places have done the things that they needed to do based on the chemicals that they needed to put into their body. And in some cases, it was so linked to them that it became a nickname. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I hope that I don't know. I don't think the Jamaicans are called pastafarians because of pasta. But anyway. So
right. So how was Thanksgiving?
was yours good? Mine was wonderful. It was My family is scattered. My older brother in Florida, my younger brother in Indiana. So we got together with the Fitzgerald family, and Colleen is one of 9. So it's not as big as it once was. It used to be like 30 people because everybody would gather and all their kids and stuff. And now various of the kids have and nieces and nephews have their own families, so they start their own tradition, or they have to split time because there's both a husband and wife, or wife and wife, whatever it might be. And so I think we started off with 9 people at the table, and it expanded at one point to 15 because people stopped by. We were their second round, if you will. But it was just like what you want Thanksgiving to be. Multiple turkeys. They still made 2 turkeys because that's just Fitzgerald family tradition. And then everybody brought side dishes. So we had the green bean casserole, which I learned is actually older than I am. It was first created in 1955 on a Campbell's soup label, and it swept the nation. It became hugely popular because that was their way of selling more cream of mushroom soup. and Durkee's onions also, I think, made an empire, made a fortune out of it because that's what you sprinkle on top of the casserole.
Right. And my mother will not do Thanksgiving without it. We got to make the I'm like, why? Let's do something else. It's not, the Pilgrims didn't eat it. It's not tradition in the sense like it's old world.
Right. It's not squash. It's not turkey and so mashed potatoes and gravy and they had like not squash, sweet potato casserole and things like that. And I as usual, Colleen made a huge salad. I helped by chopping, but she's the maestro of this wonderful big salad with all the different ingredients in it, and make sure we bring along a choice of dressings so that everybody gets the French or the thousand or the whatever else they might like. Italian is so standard for people. I like ranch. I made a couple dessert breads, so I had, and that's always accepted, not only because they like it that night, but lots of people will take the leftovers home, so they have like things to have with their coffee in the morning. So I try to make like lemon poppy seed and banana and pumpkin and cinnamon, and they all die. It's funny, they're the simplest thing in the world to make. I don't really make them. I make them from a box. You know what I mean? I get a little mix and just add like eggs and applesauce and stuff like that instead of oil, which makes it a little bit healthier. But they turn out great and tasty and moist every single time. And so every time when the family has a little powwow to say who's bringing what, as you might imagine, a lot of people say, I'd like to bring my usual mashed potatoes or whatever. And they always ask me for my breads, because apparently that next morning thing is a real good thing. So I'm
Nice.
proud that I was able to, join a big family, and everybody's already got their niche. And I'll make green bean casserole. Oh no, Sweeney makes the green bean casserole. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So it was nice that I was able to find a way of being able to contribute that wasn't like in duplication or even
Right.
competition. Have you ever done this? I have, my ethnicity is Lithuanian and German, and they're Irish and Italian. So you try to bring in a couple things that you had growing up. So I made kugelis one year, which is like a baked potato pudding casserole. It's really good. Got some bacon in it. It's like it's so much not healthy. It's got like, it's all the starch plus the bacon plus whatever butter is involved and stuff like that. And unfortunately, my great aunt Aldana used to make it, and it was just so great. It was one of the things that we never had at home, so I look forward to it every year. I discovered, there I am, grinding up a whole bunch of potatoes, because you take potatoes, grind them down, and make it into this thing. If you don't keep potatoes underwater in the air in 2 minutes, they go from like nice white to gray.
Yeah.
And so I made what looked like a concrete slab in this oven pan, and it's, how appetizing is gray? Not.
Right.
It's not at all. So some people tried it boldly because I built up, hey, you got to try this. But other people were just like, I don't want ashes in a pan. I don't want. So some things that I've tried, either German or Lithuanian, they haven't made it. I don't make them well enough, or they have their traditions, and everybody has an idea of what they want their Thanksgiving. So is yours traditional, like turkey and mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce?
Oh
and things
God,
like that?
yes.
Your family do. Okay.
My father always had to be traditional. And we talked about that actually, how some families do like tacos or something like that. So we had our turkey, we had, pretty standard stuff, much more quiet. We didn't have large amounts of family like we have in the past. So it was nice and relaxing Thursday.
Very good. And as usual, I think you guys do this too. After the food gets cleared, it's time for games. And we discovered the Fitzgeralds, like usually Maureen, Aaron, others, they buy these little like box games that are like 10 or 15 bucks. And they have they're party games. They're more like to get people talking and that kind of stuff. But we discovered one, I think Aaron got it, called Hot Seat, where it's one of those things that a person answers a personal question, and then everybody else around the table tries to think of what that person, how they would have answered it. And then you see who matches, and who, if someone gives a false answer, did they lure anybody else to that false answer? So like per quackery, or one of those things where you try to give a believable enough answer in their voice that they might say it. And so it's funny, I was not good at predicting other people, but I was really good at giving things that would lure people to agree with me that they should have said that. And then, of course, it's funny, we were having a really nice time because it engenders discussion. It triggers a memory, and people talk about it. Oh yeah, you've always liked Raggedy Ann and Andy, or whatever else it might be. And then, of course, the answers started to be not just really trying to predict what they would say, but teasing them a little bit, trying to say what they should say, or try to say something that's very much the opposite of what they would say. And it went on for hours. Oftentimes, those games are worth a good half hour, 45 minutes. Then you go to the next one. And instead, we were just having such a nice time. And it really was, nobody drops out. It's not like Risk, where, okay, you're out, go sit in the other room, like that. Everybody gets to play every round. It just was unexpectedly, I don't know, for 10 bucks or whatever like that. What a nice time it made.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have great replayability, because once you've done the questions, you got to hope that maybe there's enough questions left in the box, or that they'll do extension sets, extras and stuff. But really fun, simple.
It transcended being a game and just became a social activity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as we go to Mind Games, Mensa does their event called Mind Games, where you get a chance to play test games before they're out on the market. And almost always you can tell what's going to be like the party game winner of the year, because it's the one that over the table in the corner, there's 8 people at the table and they're just cracking up, or they're singing, or they're doing things that party games sometimes demand. And this, as simple as it was, I could see how I would have voted a lot for this, because it's got easy rules, good replayability. If they have the extension sets, it'll be even more replayability. It just was, I don't know, we got to playing immediately. Sometimes one of Colleen's favorite gripes about that is, here's an 18-page manual, make it a multiple of 4. It's 20-page manual, and you don't even know what the first turn is like until you read the entire thing, get the board all set up, who chooses to be an elf versus a dwarf versus a troll, all that kind of interesting stuff. This was just crack open box. It's a little 2-pager, away we go. So we like that too, that it's not, in fact, Colleen and I have occasionally brought games, post Mind Games, that we really thought were fun. And man, did I get mocked, for instance, for one where you're like, oh, it's a coral reef, and you're putting cards out in a little 5x5 array so that your reef will be ecologically balanced. And there's octopi and plankton and whales and all that kind of stuff. And I thought it was pretty, and I thought it was fun. Everybody else was like, what's the point of this? This is not just. And so now when we talk about what game is someone going to pick, it's I have Coral Reef, or you can just tell me to stick it up my ass again if you'd like. Sorry, a little bit of a cough still. And so I like that the family is willing to play new games, and we play a lot of traditional stuff. We play Pinochle when it's like a foursome and things like that. But it's also, I love it when it's multi-generational. Once in a while you'll play like Taboo or Encore or something like that, and it's very funny to have people that are, what lyrics do I have in my head? All the rap music from the last 20 years, not all the progressive rock from the last 40 years like Al does. And you can't even really call each other on whether that's a real song or not, because could be that it's a sea shanty. It could be that it's
I love some of these family social games, like you said, with the multiple generations. You get the teenagers, but then you get like the 80-year-old grandparents and stuff. And then you say something and it's like a sexual innuendo or something, and grandma and grandpa are laughing, or they're the ones making it, and everybody else, oh my God, stop, teenagers.
You never did that. No, you were always going to church and baking bread and stuff. That's like
always that. So. Especially as you get closer to that age, you start going, yeah, that's not that weird, I guess.
I mentioned this online, actually. So at one point, I was like, the thing was like, what would you do in 5 minutes to impress people? And someone said, for a guy who's in good shape, that he should take off his shirt. And then, of course, somehow the conversation turned to, they always picture Jesus Christ as being like ripped. And someone made a near blasphemous joke about, oh yeah, that the crucifixion workout that you get really gives you great abs. Like Jesus had like an 8-pack instead of a 6-pack. And I said the pun joke, oh yeah, those were those Pontius Pilates. And then everybody's laughing or groaning or gasping and whatever else it might be. And I said, oh yeah, his trainers really whipped him into shape. But I just like wouldn't let it go. And when I mentioned that online, some of the girls goes, yeah, nailed it. And it's just blasphemy after, but it's, sorry, it's funny. We're not bad people that God is going to reach down and smite the house because we made a joke about the Christ. But it was just, it's funny. It's funny to do that kind of thing. You don't, we really do have some people that are more serious about that, or more serious about if there's kids at the table, don't say any swearing and stuff like that. But you know what? After the kids are grown up from 12 to 22, I don't really hold back on fuck anymore. I just, it's kind of how I talk. And I'm not, I don't think I'm, gratuitous is often the term used. I'm not saying motherfucker all the time, but it's just sometimes for the humor of it, the shock value of it, you're just quoting a movie. You don't censor yourself. You don't blue nose yourself. You're like all adults, and it's one word out of the 1,000 that I said that night. I don't think I'm a bad guy.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So speaking of all the games we played, there's a whole series of games called Tiny Epic something or other. Okay. And they're in little boxes about that big, maybe 2 inches thick. And so they're very easy to carry. Literally, you could stick them in a pocket of your winter coat. Yeah. And every single one of them has a different theme. And when you open it, you have to stop for a minute, because here's this little box. And when you open it, there's a baggie with 300 little pieces of stuff in it. And then you unfold this board that ends up being like huge. And then
out of this little box.
Right. And while the instructions aren't epically, monumentally big, they're thick enough with enough in there. Every single one of them is definitely fun. I haven't played one that I hated, and they're that fine balance between, okay, there's a lot of instructions, but once we get rolling, it's, oh, this makes a lot of sense. You just got to dive in and start doing it and playing it. All of them are strategy, a lot of worker placement type stuff, putting the pieces around.
Okay, a certain amount of resource scarcity, a certain amount of strategy and tactics.
Yeah,
cool.
but they've got pirates and Vikings and zombies and Epic Galaxies and Epic Quest, which is an adventuring one, and some unique components. We played the Epic Quest, which is like a dungeon questing one, but at first I was like, oh, okay, thinking adventuring. I'm going to move here. I'm going to try and build up and stuff. No, you got 6 turns. Every turn you move your little guys out and you're trying to get through stuff, because at the end of every turn, you all return to your castle. So you're not going on extended campaigns. So your strategy is your movement, and there's 4 movement cards. So I choose this movement and we both move that way. And then they chose that. So you can't just move however you want. Part of your movement depends on what the other guys pick.
Other guys choose, exactly.
Yeah. And the best part is it has a weapon rack or an item rack with all the little pieces stuck on it. So if you get a special item, you pull it off the item rack and it sticks onto your guy. They got little holes to hold. So that makes it cool. But it's these little games. Now, when they first came out 10-ish years ago, they were like $20. Now they're up to 30 or 40 just because of production costs, but still well worth it. Because like I said, you can carry 3 or 4 of these easily to someplace.
That's very cool. And it sounds like the guys who make these really understand gameplay. Instead of having a theme that's all about pirates, it's more, we know what makes the good balance between movement and resource and like competition and cooperation, whatever else all those things might be, a certain amount of luck, a certain amount of skill. I love that they've been able to make half a dozen of them with various different themes and make them all kind of like work. How would pirates be different than Vikings? Because they're both on boats, but this one's about, I'm just trying to think of sitting around the table and brainstorming and capturing all the cool things and then playing it until it's balanced enough, just like you talked about with games that you've developed, that you got to play test it a lot to see how does it work? Does it get to a victory, or does it bog down somewhere? Are people like not only ever get confused, but are they actively pissed at how, wow, I really got bad cards and now there's nothing in this game for me, or whatever else it might be. So I love people that have that game sense. So
we played one that was dinos, and you're a dino rancher. So it's got certain rules about penning them up and which ones are together and feeding them and getting. So again, it's enough strategy to really keep you interesting without being Axis and Allies or something.
Exactly. So it's kind of funny. Jack, one of my nephews, talked about that when him and his friends don't know what else to do, they play Catan. And I always thought that was a gamer's game. You know what I mean? It came out. It was one of the, where German Spiele have a certain style to them, if you will. Right. And the fact that it came out with, how did it initially catch on? Because that was probably the first one, right? Compared to Puerto Rico or Carcassonne or whatever. The first one of those things where you build your own map with your hexagonal tiles and stuff. I always hope that those things will do well, even with people that are used to moving around a board on a known trail or something like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm always heartened by that. The world says, actually, this is cool. A little bit what you said. It isn't maybe right at the start, you have to figure it out. But once you get it going, you go, oh, there's cool ways in which you can hedge your bets in every way about what resources you have and who you're cooperating with, who you're competing, and all that kind of stuff. And that every single game is different. You know what I mean? There are some games that after a while, certain people play a certain way, or you do, and that it's just refining it. But there's enough randomness about everything, about resources and tiles and everything, that there's always little surprises. You know what I mean? That you really have to pay attention. Just even the relative placement of your guys on the table, and depending on who you're in front of and who you're behind, there's people that really play like you, and so it works together. But there's other people that screw every plan you have up, even without actively trying to do it. They just play in a different style. I really love that kind of stuff.
And I had an experience with Catan. It's funny you brought that one up, which, by the way, I think the creator just died this year, if I remember right.
Yeah. So hats off to him for creating a whole genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. But I have some friends who, had some issues with Catan and said it wasn't good enough, and they made some modifications like house rules and stuff. Okay. And I played it and I'm like, yeah, I'm bored as hell. There's no challenge here. There's no conflict. It's like I talk about with stories. You got to have that challenge and conflict. And all it really was, everybody, what they changed it to was everybody building up all their stuff and resources so you could build as much stuff as you wanted. And the first one to get the most stuff wins. And I'm like, yeah, that's just boring as hell. And they were like, so what'd you think of the modifications? I'm like, yeah, cool. Keep working on them.
You kind
Yeah.
of took the juice out of it, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I've said it before, this same group of people, when they play games, they have the same thought and strategy no matter what game it is. And if they can't use that thought or strategy, they don't enjoy the game. My one friend, we played Dominion and he thought it was a fun game. We played the original base set where has a lot of combo cards where you keep drawing and playing cards. Then we played another setup that included witches, which have curses, which give you -1. And he got almost done with the game. We were this close. And he goes, screw it. I'm not playing this anymore. If you do witches with curses, I refuse to play, because it took away from his strategy of build up. He's building up strong and I kept giving him curses and he just didn't like that. You know,
Right, to bring him back down. Exactly.
yeah. So I did also play. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think I'm the one that said it first almost. You can learn from an hour of gaming as much as if you had 5 hours of conversation with someone.
Yeah.
People really do show what their problem solving thing is, whether they're greedy or vengeful or like building. Some people are automatically cooperative until you betray them and then they go after you. There's various different ways in which people play games. My mom used to play Risk, where she liked taking over Australia and then like building huge blockades to stop anybody from ever getting into Australia, because there's only one way in from Siam to whichever Western Australia or Malaysia, maybe whichever one it is up there. So it was, if mom's in the game, we know that's what she's going to do. And once in a while, we often randomize what cards you draw to get your starting countries instead of people choosing them. So she would start off not in Australia. She'd be scattered around the world. Is she going to do a similar strategy for South America? Or is she going to like work her way through to get to her Australia? And it's funny, my mom is German and she doesn't have any business liking Australia, if you will. But she knew that was the defensible castle, if you will. And that's what she did. So it's as compared to people that are more adventuresome and they'll exhaust their armies trying to take things, or they'll be strategic and say, if I take it up to here, then I get another set of cards and that'll get my next run against these other people. So we used to have often Baltus New Year's Eve, when the family was all together, we'd play Who Runs the World next year by seeing who won Risk that night. And that was an okay night to play that, because if you got eliminated, you would just go watch like Laugh in the New Year movies with the Marx Brothers and Laurel and Hardy and stuff like that. You didn't sit over there in the corner like nursing a beer or just being sad. It was okay to lose, if you will. And some people were very serious about how much they needed to win. And that was an early thing that it's never mattered to me. It matters to me that, okay, my plan worked, or hey, I was lucky with the dice, but I just don't invest a lot. Once in a while, I'm really astounded that a big plan of mine didn't work out, because it really had to be like the 1 in 100 odds that undid me. But once in a while, just like when you play hearts, distribution is against you, and your perfect plan was like, there's no way that nobody else should have had spades except me and this guy. I'm going into too much detail, but really, there's just things where it's, wow, that's just so against the odds of the universe in general. Right. Why did I get the short end of the stick so spectacularly?
And that's part of that balance and playability, that there are a lot of games that rely a little bit on that random luck factor. And I know some of my buddies hate those types of games. They want everything planned and they can do it all. But I like that little bit of randomization, and sometimes it's against you, but I like playing variety, which is why I like Dominion. Give me a different setup every time. Give me stuff I've never played before. Love it.
Exactly. That's funny. And games are meant to parallel life. So it's like when you play Monopoly, and most people don't anymore because they know that's like an all-night game and it leads to fights and whatever else it might be. But early on, was there anything as satisfying as someone's doing well, they're taking over the board, they got all the deeds, and then they get assessed. They get one of the chance or community chess cards that makes them pay a lot because they are so successful. And isn't that like life? There should be, if you're doing well, that you got to put back into the community by taxes or by other things, the reason for that. And when you see that people find a way to try to snake out of it and stuff, that's like the real world too. You know what I mean?
Right.
That people don't only become successful. One of the things they start working on is to change the rules so that their situation can't change. And I don't know, I'm okay once in a while with, it isn't that successful people should get brought down, but it is that you have what's the famous, you didn't build that by yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're like a big trucking company, no matter how intelligently you loaded your trucks and did all their stuff, you didn't build the roads. You didn't build the docks at each of the companies. You have to understand that you live in an interconnected world, and there's no problem with that. It's just accepting reality. That's the way the world is. And to talk about it as if it's not the case, that you single-handedly split the atom, I don't think you did. You might be standing on the shoulders of giants, as they also say.
Right. Right.
So anyway, that's so much of the fun of games, is finding out, especially once in a while when people are concealing about what they're like. And then once in a while, they just, boy, that was like the greediest thing you could have done. I didn't see that side of you before, but now I know it's there. Opportunistically, you really would try to take it all.
Right.
That kind of things.
Saturday, I also went up to the local game store and played the new Disney Lorcana. It's a CCG that came out in August or July. And at first I was like, nah, I don't want to get into a CCG. I know there's a bit of commitment, there's some time and money, and I'm just like, ugh. But I heard some more. What?
Give some background on it. In other words, it's using Disney princesses. I don't know much.
It is Disney through the years. It's all new art, so that's very fascinating to look at. But it's everything Disney, and it's very family friendly. Instead of Pokemon, this is a very good choice to play a CCG with kids, because
it's got the addictive things of, there's always more cards coming out, and the better cards are what you want to get and trade for. And
yes,
the things. CCG, collectible card game, by the way, right, of our listeners.
So I'm assuming a lot of people are familiar with Magic, which is you against somebody else, and your creatures are attacking them, and they can get blocked by the other creatures, and the creatures fight and go away. So I'm trying to hit you and knock you out of the game. This one, we could play a whole game almost solo. It's funny because
not interacting with the other players.
There is some, but it's not the way to win. So that's what makes it interesting. Now, it is a new game. So I got to play with a guy, and we were talking about it, and we're like, yeah, this is a new game. So folks are like, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do this. And I could, it's, oh my God, calm down. You're comparing this brand new game with one or now two sets to a game that is literally 30 years old.
It's got 3 decades behind it. So.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So chill out, folks. But the way to win is you have to collect lore, Disney lore. And different cards have different amounts of lore on them. Obviously, higher priced cards have more lore. So you're getting those out. So the way for me to stop you is my characters can challenge your characters, and basically they fight, and what they do is they de-ink. So when you play a card, the ink has to dry before it can activate. And then when you hit another card, you don't kill it, you de-ink it, and it leaves the board. So I can hit your characters, knock them out, so they're not producing lore, but I can't hit them until they've been tapped. So you actually have to use it before I can hit it. Right, so I can't just play. Okay. Yeah. So I can't just sit there with some creature and just, oh, he brought something out, it's dead. You can't do that.
And to snipe them off, that's classic why people don't like a lot of online games, is because there's someone sniping right at the entrance. You know what I mean? So anyway, okay.
And the other thing that really got me to say, okay, I want to get into some of this is, number one, I heard that they spent 5 years in development, really tweaking the game and coming out with what they wanted it to do and play. Right. And I can see that in the rules and the keywords. It's, oh my gosh, there is a lot of room for expansion in this game. There's a lot of new things.
The way they wrote it was like, oh, we got to account for this and this. And they got all those possible. Okay, very good.
So they already have a 5-year plan. They have all the sets planned out for the first 5 years. Wow. So it's not going to be most of the games where they come out maybe an expansion and then they go away and nobody ever plays it.
Or you come out and you don't even know if they're going to expand it. It's only based on high sales. And they go, hey, we could do a version 2.
Right.
Things like that.
Right.
Okay.
And the other thing that really endeared me to the game was when they first came out, only small local game stores could get it. You couldn't find it at Target or Walmart or even on Amazon. Only small game stores. Now, the problem is,
I mentioned it before because of that it really was released in a very specific way to bring the gamer influencers, the lovers in early,
Right.
but just be okay, very
Now,
cool.
the two problems are they didn't have quite enough inventory stock when they first came out due to demand. So all these guys are like, oh, you can't get it online. I want 10 boxes of it. And then they turned around and sold it on eBay and Amazon for 6-7 times what they paid for it.
So the black market for Disney product. Oh,
Yeah. So
okay.
if you just wanted to play it, it was very difficult to get into it because all the product disappeared like day one. But they are coming the first set. They're doing a second run and doing more to release. So I don't care if it's
Okay.
first run, which will be worth more in the collector market, or second run.
Right. You'll have
you
a
know,
slightly different border, and you can tell. And okay,
Yeah. Okay, whatever. It's the same card. I want to play it.
What turned me off to Magic early on, I was in for the first couple of years, was when people really started to get fanatic about it and pay too much money or be willing to like screw other people over. I remember going to a gaming convention in Chicago, and like they had all kinds of people, all kinds of things to do there, lines out the door with people lining up just to get, and it was rationed, like you were saying, a certain box of the next, probably version 5 or something like that. But it was just, wow, all this other cool stuff to do here, and people giving all that up because nothing matters more than them being in line to get the next. And I don't tend to be fanatic like that. I really love certain things, but dealing with fanatics and knowing that people are going to be like cutthroat, elbowing each other, I just don't like that weird atmosphere.
Agreed.
So I tend to not get involved. And if I can foresee that it might turn that, I tend to not even take the first step. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And yet it's they seemed like they were aware of people like me who have that experience and said, could we do this so it's a softer release? How can we do it so that anyway?
Yeah, and I love the fact that they're coming out with all the stuff again, because anyone that was interested and missed that first set and doesn't want to pay $600 for a box, they can just wait until another month or two and you'll be able to get the same stuff.
So it's Disney characters. And so what an interesting thing is, you're going to have, it's not only the classic of Mickey and Minnie and Goofy and Pluto and whatever, but they're going to be interacting with Aladdin. I'm trying to make sure that I know which studio.
Yeah,
character.
I had Gaston.
You know what I mean?
I had Gaston and the dwarves, and there is Aladdin. I didn't have him in this deck, and it was some smaller characters. We were even talking, what's that character from? We had I think it's from this. Is that type of thing?
Exactly.
And I know people are
taking a lesser movie or something like that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know some people are like, they didn't put so-and-so in and they didn't put so-and-so in. I'm like, oh my God, it's one set. There's 200 cards. That's it. Right. Jeez.
But it's funny that some people's knowledge of Disney is encyclopedic, that they're looking forward to. I wanted that one talking bird, and it's not the penguin and it's not the parrot. I really enjoy animation, and I see pretty much all those things. But I'm not a kid that watches them 100 times where I really know the land that time forgot, like to recite the lines with them or something like that. Right. I don't retain. I just don't. I don't see them multiple times. I just really like the animation and the craft that goes into each one, and you can see the world moving forward. The animation in Tarzan when he's like surfing through the trees was just amazing compared to the stodgier stuff from, honestly, 80 years ago now. When was
early
40s? So we're going on 80 years. That's amazing. Wow. Okay.
And the really cool thing is, I know there's people that want to play these games, but always, I don't want to spend the money. And I always tell them, so if you're playing casual, you don't have to keep buying everything new. So with this one, it's easy enough. If you just grab 2 starter decks, you ever have a friend that likes Disney and likes card games? Here, let me show you this one. It is not difficult to get started and get going. It's easy enough to understand. The cards aren't complicated. There's not such, like I was playing there's a new Doctor Who Magic set out. Yeah.
Think about this. Okay.
Yeah. My son got them all. I was looking at them, but it's Commander decks, which is a style of Doctor Who. And I'm looking at going, man, that's $65 a deck. And I'm like, I don't play enough to even make it worthwhile. So I played his, and they were kicking my butt because every card, and this is where people complain, I get it. Every card had so many things to read and then think about how it interacts with all, and I'm trying to figure all this out.
You're exhausted just from playing the game.
Yeah. By the time it got back to my turn, and they're like, it's your turn. I'm like, I haven't even read half of what I got. What'd you guys do? I didn't pay attention. Right. So I'm just like behind the whole game, which is fine. They're very happy with it. If I was into Magic and played Magic a lot, I would know my deck. I wouldn't have to read every card. That's
Right.
part of the pro level thinking.
Yeah.
These cute Disney character I love, and oh look, one line tells me what it does. I'm gonna play it.
There
We
we go.
chatted. Plus, the guy I played with was about our age, and he was talking. We were talking about old CCGs, and I mentioned Stargate, and he goes, "I didn't know about that one. I'd love to play it." I'm like, I will bring them next week. And he goes, well, I always played the Decipher Star Wars. I'm like, do you have a deck? He goes, yeah, I've got several. I'm like, bring those. I'll bring mine. And so I was laughing, like, we're set. And it's funny because you're going to the store to play. Right. And I'm like, we set up play dates.
Right, exactly. It really is cool to find out like that. Some things last forever. I have things that I played when I was 10 that I still enjoy playing now. You know what I mean? And so once in a while, because things fade also, when you find out that someone really might want to play Rail Baron or Acquire or things that are like the Games Magazine classics, the reason that they're classics is because they have great play style. They have great replayability and stuff like that. And if you're finding someone that's equally fanatic about you, it won't be, I'm going to explain the game and then not to be a jerk, I'm going to have to calm myself down about going to victory because I want people to not have the idea that I wanted to play it just so I could steamroller over them, even though I know the game so well that I have my heuristics, my strategies that might work well. You have to calm down and not be all about winning. You have to be about making the game enjoyable. But if you have a guy who's a good challenger, then you can really go at it and say, has he seen this gambit yet? And see what works and see what doesn't. Right. Like playing, when I play chess, I don't play regularly anymore. But so much, I loved going to tournaments because it wasn't just playing chess. It was figuring out who has seen what, who's got book knowledge, who has enough experience to be able to not fall for a gambit or something like that.
Right.
Once you exhaust the easy gambits, then you say, we're really going to have a game then. We're really looking 3, 4, 5 moves ahead, and we're really going to have to play chess. And I always loved coming to that realization after 5, 10 moves and going, okay, this isn't going to be a cheat. It's not going to be easy and cheap. It's going to be a real game. And if you love the game, it's very cool to get an immersive experience instead of a shallow one. You know what I mean? So very cool.
So we'll see. I'm going to go back on Saturday for a little while because I'm in the league. So every week you can buy one pack and use that to modify your deck. So nobody is buying 10 boxes and taking all the big rares and throwing them in their deck. You get one
coming out with a juggernaut deck that nobody else can play. Exactly.
You get everybody starts with a starter deck, so nobody has like anything different or more powerful, and you get one pack a week to pull stuff. So you get one rare a week if you want, if it even fits in your deck. It may not. So
managing that gaming experience so that nobody could come in and buy their way to victory.
Exactly.
I mean? Yep. So what's the name of the game store again? Underhill?
No, Underhill's up in Akron, which is a great game store for anybody. Empire is in Streetsboro, which is another great game store for anybody. But this one is in Ravenna. It's called Battlegrounds, and they've been expanding, and they had so many games on sale for Black Friday. And if you like RPGs and Warhammer, they have tons of that stuff.
The whole wall, exactly.
Yeah, and they have tons of Magic. If you're into Magic, they do Magic Friday or Friday Night Magic. They do D&D on Saturdays and stuff. They have groups that come in and play miniatures. They have one whole room, if you look in it, has all these great looking models for miniatures all set up, people getting ready to play.
They have worlds to interact with. Exactly. Yeah. There's a town to go through. Here's a mountainous area. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's 10 minutes away from me. And they've been around for 6 or 7 years. I'm like, why don't I go here more? I want to play more with people. And this is the place to go, and I haven't been going. They need to know my name. They need to go Norm when you walk in.
Really, and that's wonderful that you're a regular. Exactly. Pardon me. We had a great gaming bar here in Lakewood called SideQuest that I didn't go to. Same thing. 5 minutes walk from my house. I didn't go too often enough, and it closed because of COVID, and I don't think it's coming back. One of the few oddnesses that I had about it was, if you're going to run a gaming place, you have to protect everything. So every single card was in a little plastic sleeve, and the board was sealed. All of it, like you couldn't shuffle the cards in a way that you shuffle cards. You had to do different, almost go fish, swirling them around.
Right.
And I don't know what it is, but playing with family and everybody being able to like really touch the meeples and move things around. And of course, even at home, you risk somebody spilling a drink and, oh God, you wrecked it. But because they really have to worry about that, I always felt that there was a distance of really getting into the game when everything was sanitized and sterilized and like untouchable. I not like I chew on the card or that I smell everything. It's not a full sensory experience, but there's just something about it's not just playing with your friends. It's a different experience. So
Yeah.
I didn't take to certain kinds of games that were too much the sound of plastic rustling instead of how the game is in the real world, if you will, in the casual. Anyway.
Right.
Okay.
So there's another one. Let me do a shout out to Full Grip Games up in Akron. They have a Green Dragon Inn game pub connected.
Okay.
So I know Amber has gone there a bunch.
Good. I think I regularly see posts from our friends on Facebook and stuff where they've been to the various different game nights or sales or whatever else it might be. Yeah,
right. So my biggest problem with getting into this CCG card game, which is planned for long term and they want to do it, is that March there's a Star Wars CCG coming out. So now I'm like, I am really in trouble.
Addictions.
That's
exactly.
right.
I'm really gonna, oh boy.
And I'm not getting into it like I did with Magic, where I'm going and playing for hours a week, multiple people and stuff. I'm going and casually playing a little bit, but I got to do the Star Wars one because I've always loved all the Star Wars card games, and a CCG that's new and people are playing. I missed that with Decipher because when it came out, we were getting married and getting ready to move to California. And so I didn't have time and money to buy tons of cards. I didn't have, then I moved, I didn't know anybody. So I missed out a lot on playing that with people. And I don't want to feel that regret, regardless of money and stuff. I just want to have a couple decks. I want to play with people.
I hear you. I love that a gaming store is one of those places you can go in and you don't know them from Adam, and you can have a nice experience.
Yeah.
You can have a good game. You can have a nice conversation. I've had any number of times where I tend to, when I'm in other cities that I don't frequent, I will find those kinds of places, a bookstore, a CD store, if they still exist, a game store, and you can just start talking. And because I've been around for a while, as you have, it's very cool to make a little reference and hear them laugh about, I didn't know anybody else knew about Empire of the Petal Throne. And then you have this wonderful, interesting connection. It's a Menson thing because Menson's absorbed so much music and reading and that kind of stuff that to have that little bit of shared reference, that shared experience, it makes distance and difference fade away. And you're like, I love those kinds of things where we have a link, we have this, and then when you play with them, I don't know, I tend to be pretty jovial. And so it's very nice to be like, we all had a really good time. There was no psycho that had to rule the table there. I really love going away from a situation like that. It doesn't have to be even a cooperative game like Pandemic or something like that, where you could just tell that nobody was cutthroat and nobody had their ego involved and nobody, because sometimes this is a sad thing. A lot of gamers, many gamers, some are on the spectrum, and sometimes things not going their way really unnerve them. And so you have to identify that early on. I didn't mean to move the dice to the wrong place. Please tell me what you need. And unless it's crazy, I'll be happy to do it. It doesn't matter to me where those things go. But once in a while, when somebody's too much into it and it really matters, it's, oh boy, I hope you don't wig out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can see, especially this kind of interesting, sweeping, terrible stereotyping or whatever. But sometimes there's a certain age where like they're young teens maybe, and they got dropped off by their parents and they really love doing this, but they don't have a good executive function. You're a little bit on eggshells, but you're a little bit of, when they're having a good time, they're so smart and there's so much like you enjoy that good time with them, of seeing how encyclopedic they are, or like that they laugh about, they understand the odds enough that it wasn't the dice had it in for them or that someone else made a really good move. They're just like, I tried what I did and it didn't work out, on we go. Some people don't get stuck in the rut. So it's cool to see people's minds who really work on deep strategy, where it's like, you planned that 5 moves ago. That's really good.
Right.
You know, you think that they might be punks in gaming. I don't know everything about every game. I'm hardly like the Commodore of everything. And so it's really cool to get challenged, not only expectedly so, but more like, you fucking suckered me. Good for you. You know, I thought I was pretty hoary in my understanding, Hoary, and you got me. You totally took me. I kind of love being, because I am often not fooled. It's very fun. Fooled is not even the right word. To be outwitted.
Yeah,
I got pretty big
out strategized.
Out strategized. Exactly. You really roped me in, and you really kept me expending when I shouldn't. And it was I really love what's about being, I guess I got more to learn. How cool is
Eh,
that?
as long as you do get the
So,
ones that are good. There's too many. It's not just teens. There's lots of people, but they're
you're right.
like, I'm superior at this game. I'm wasting my time playing with you. And they play something and they're like very dismissive of you, and it's okay, I won, and they walk away. It's, you're no fun to play with. I like enjoyment and
That's
discussion,
right.
and you could kick my butt all day long, but if I'm enjoying playing with you, I'll keep playing. But if you're just there, it's, I'm playing this because I'm better than you. Oh, great, go ahead. I'll
Right.
swipe and go away.
There is something in my psychology that really hates bullies, and that's a kind of bully.
Yep.
And so once in a while, when they're really, it's the opposite. Instead of my being jovial, but being relatively
You
self-assured,
crank it up.
that if they're going to really think they're going to beat me no matter what, there's nothing more satisfying than to play the jock fraternity in a pickup softball game and have a ragtag bunch of dorm people whoop them. You know what I mean? We'd had that any number of times in U of I tournaments where we just, even though we had just dorm people, it was a co-ed floor, and we had a lot of the lady athletes, and a lot of times in a co-ed league, the ATO jocks, that's a big jock fraternity, would be really good at what they're doing, but they'd have like their bevy of beauties as their partners instead of the lady jocks. And so we had a full team and they had half a team. And by just having a good pitcher and a good left fielder, you could shut down a great hitting team. And so any number of times you could just see them just spitting mad because we weren't a rollover. And in fact, we were taking it to them. Anyway, it's just very satisfying to have someone at that level of arrogance. Yeah. Are you going to be okay? We want to play again? You know what I mean?
Do we need to make it fair? We'll tie our left hands behind our back.
Exactly
Yeah,
that.
really
If you want to, we'll play without a center fielder. Would that be okay? We can even it up a little bit, give you a handicap. I will give you a handicap. Anyway.
So what type of plans you got for the holidays, or what are you getting for Colleen, or what's going on with all that? Because we're not in December, but it'll go like that.
So, for instance, first, we're going to be down in Cincinnati come this next weekend, and I'm going to be doing my talk about drinking from the fire hose, about how to, in the world of too much to read and watch and play and et cetera, how do you choose? So we're going to do that. And then while we're down there, we're going to go to Jungle Gyms, which is one of those places that's 5 Quonset huts big with all the different imported food from around the world. And so we're going to do a little bit of shopping to see, for instance, my mom, when we were growing up, we always got Gelt. It's the little foil wrapped chocolate coins that you in your stockings, a very German thing. And so I'm going to look for specifically things that from our youth and from her youth were German Christmas specific. And we're going to put together a little Christmas tree in the room and put together a little basket and all that kind of stuff. So that's one. We sent out Advent calendars. I think we've talked about that on the program before. I just love that tradition of it builds the anticipation for Christmas. Every day you open a little window and, oh, there's a little angel. And we send them out to all of our family, every brother, sister, niece, nephew, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully we sent them out on Saturday, and that should be enough time for them to get to them before December 1st. So there won't be, oh, thanks for giving me on December 15th. I am going to open, we found a place called 'Tis the Season down in Amish country that has a whole wall of them. So we can actually get a whole bunch of variety, and then we really keep track of, okay, Aaron and Maureen live across the street from each other. We don't want to get them the same calendar. That's going to be boring. So we make a point, a little keep track of what did we get them last year and who do we know that's going to compare between, and just make sure that we get equal amounts of glitter for everybody and stuff like that. And I think the people like them. Nobody has said, hey, stop sending that. I hope. And then already I've been doing, from Black Friday and Cyber Monday and that kind of stuff, I have all kinds of, one of my favorite things in the world to do is, because I really do listen and remember, Colleen will mention little things throughout the year as to what she might be interested in, or a book that she thought about, and that kind of stuff. And so I just have my little lists on my phone or in my head, and I've gotten her all kinds of fun stuff already. If anything, I'm like overdoing it, but that's what I tend to do. Is you can have a table full of gifts, but if they're all like, this book costs $10 and this CD costs $15, you can get a whole bunch of stuff for $200. And we tend to overwhelm each other. She has tons of stuff for me. And what I also got was, if we don't always say a number as to what the right number of gifts is, I got things that we'll both, because often we get books that, hey, when you're done with that, let me read it. I got a bunch of stuff that, if that's the extra gifts, if you will, whoever's got taking turns opening gifts as we do, there will be a whole bunch of stuff that we can do that just back and forth and say, yep, those are for the both of us. So
right.
I got, in fact, Colleen, don't listen to the podcast.
Beep.
A game. I really like trekking the national parks. I
Mhm.
discovered it like 5 years ago, probably, right? It's a really nice game where you go to all the 63 national parks and monuments in the United States, and enough little gameplay about how to move, and you learn about each park and stuff like that. And just, we love doing that, and we love being aware of where they are. We've probably only been to half of them. And so, when are we going to make it to American Samoa? When are we going to make it to, like, I've been to Yosemite. She has not. Anyway, I got her, she really likes Laura Ingalls Wilder things, the Little House on the Prairie books.
Right.
And I found a couple more things. That's one of those things, like getting her Kurt Vonnegut stuff. I've gotten her so much that it really is now, I'm scraping not the bottom of the barrel because they're still cool, but they're not his works. They're collections of his letters that he sent to his wife, or that people are not writing anymore. So there's no new works coming out. And sometimes when they find supposedly new things, it wasn't out for a reason. It's fragmented and it was not their best, or whatever else it might be. But having said that, got her some fun music. When I was at Prague Stock, there was a woman there, amazingly talented, can play things from Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Yes and Genesis and that kind of stuff beautifully on keyboards, and sings beautifully. And she also happens to be blind, which makes it all the more amazing. So they had her whole set of things that she has released there, and I got all 4 of the Rachel Flowers CDs for Colleen because I think she'll really like them, and of course I might too. I'm always looking for, she really likes, not only is it big bombastic stuff, but a lot of her stuff is more like piano and a voice, and it's just beautiful. So I got some nice music for her there. I'm still working on clothings. Again, don't listen, Colleen. We have a quirky thing going on where she really likes, when she goes, now she's not doing it as much because she's not going to work conventions anymore. They will often, as part of a work convention, go to the local ball club and see a game. And sometimes it's the St. Louis and it's the main team. Sometimes it's Charlotte, and then it's a triple A or even a double A team. And often AAA, AA smaller teams have funnier names. So it's not the Cubs and the Sox and that kind of stuff. It's the Banana Slugs and it's the Isotopes and stuff like that. So at one point, having heard when she was traveling on the radio, a game being called, and hearing the line, the most productive rumble pony of the night is this, and rumble ponies. So I sought out that shirt, and that kind of started this funny, getting her more and more hilarious. And after I had investigated all the AA, AAA, etc., and had gotten her pretty much all the ones I thought were not just the captains, boring, it doesn't matter where they're from, a place called Moonshot, if I remember right, does defunct teams, like from the 1800s into the
Nice.
1900s. And so I just got her a couple shirts that, like, they weren't always politically correct back in the day. So I got her a shirt that says the Hungarian Rioters. Who knows what history it is in that small town that they had that happen. But so once again, like the spam shirt, when she wears these shirts, especially to those kinds of events, people will often say, where in the world did you get a Mud Hens shirt? Oh, that's Toledo's team right here in Ohio. And then over the course of the years, we've gotten, I think it's the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, for instance, and stuff like that. And I think I've gotten her like Wharf Rats, and just more and more. So I got her a couple of those. And of course, I always have to check in. You're a medium if you're going to do something that you're going to wear when, if we're going to go taking a walk or something like that. Yes. And do you like ladies cut, or if it's not available, do you want the full sleeve or the 3/4 sleeve? Because a lot of times you can go to these places and get, based on color and size and stuff like that, exactly what you want. And so I hope that I got her some things that she'll really like. I didn't get her a ball gown, I didn't get her something fancy, but she seems very tickled by, I haven't quite exhausted that this is a funny, cute thing to do yet. Okay,
Nice.
that's a little bit of shopping.
Yeah. So for my looking forward to gift, I always usually find something for somebody that's, I just can't wait to give it to them.
Yeah.
And so this past year, my mother always had this weather, not a weather clock. It was a clock with temperature, had indoor and outdoor temperature, and you had to have a digital thermometer outside. She always had that. I broke it this year, so she doesn't have that working anymore.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I was like,
You'll make that right. You'll get her.
yeah, it seemed cheesy to buy a replacement and make it a Christmas gift. So
Okay.
what I did is I upgraded. So I got her a full weather station. It's got the anemometer and the barometric pressure, and it connects to an app. It's got the rain gauge and all of that, with a big display with all sorts of stuff on it. And So I'm like, okay,
It
she'll
is
love
geekery.
that. And I got her,
Wonderful. Good for you.
and I got her a log book so she can keep for 5 years, keep the log of the weather.
There we go. And I mention I also got, besides the Doreen Goes Wilder, in fact, here I might even have a prop to show you. Let's see. In fact, I I recommend this to everyone. Here's the latest from Maria Bamford. Let's see, can I get in camera?
There you go. Yeah.
Sure, I'll join your cult. If you don't listen to Maria Bamford, she's an amazing comedian, and she acknowledges that she has like mental health issues, and yet she doesn't let that stop her from being bold enough to go out on stage, having really hilarious material, sometimes so revealing about the difficulties that she's been through in her life, that so brave. And wow, I don't know that I'd be that brave. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the book is about that she has sometimes been like looking for someone that would accept her. She knows she's an odd duck, and this book is about that journey of trying various different groups that, and apparently some of them a little crazy, a little culty. So I know that Colleen will appreciate that as well.
Nice.
In fact, like we've talked about this, besides what we, in particular to our family and stuff like that, there's all kinds of cool things coming out that if you're a fan at all of, for instance, Keith Emerson, they have a box set coming out called Variations that's got 20 CDs that collects all of what he ever did, all kinds of rarities, all kinds of live things, that kind of stuff. And I suspect that Colleen got that for me, even though it's pretty expensive. And Rick Wakeman has a similar thing coming out that's even more expensive than that. That's 30 CDs. And it's sad Keith Emerson is gone. And so it's a career ending retrospective, whereas Rick Wakeman, he actually got to contribute to, here's what I think should be on it. So the fact that they've done that with like Gentle Giant, and I didn't buy it when it came out, and now it can't be found, as much as we're being fixed income frugal, even though we're okay, we're safe, there's some things like I've always had this, if I see it in a store and I don't buy it now, I might never see this again, so I have to buy it. There's a couple things that are coming out right now, and we've talked about this a little bit in the past, Rhino and Burning Shed and various different compilation people, that it isn't just collecting the music. They interview all kinds of people. They put together a beautiful 70-page book of all of the history of what went into this band or this person and stuff like that. And it's been a big part of my life. I really love learning and reading and having that kind of stuff and filling in the gaps of what I didn't have from all those rarities and stuff. So it might be that I'm going to be a little goofy and spend $100, $200 on some of these things, because even though all the places that I've been cheap, I've saved up all that money so that when I have to do the Weird Al accordion box set, then I'll be able to get it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So and of course I'll be over to the jewelry store and finding a shiny for Colleen and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I think I've really gotten the Roy G. Biv spectrum of all the different colors. So she has earrings and little pens. Last year when I was visiting my mom, even a year more ago, I guess it was last year, at the Carlsbad Arts and Crafts Fair in California, found the cute little sea turtle pendant, and I found 3 or 4 other things as well. But she totally loves this thing. Once in a while you don't know it, but you're gonna hit it out. Right. And not only does she love it, but everybody that when she wears it, everybody compliments her on it. And I'm just so happy once in a while to be like, I want to get her things that I think match her or her color that she'll find pretty and stuff. But it's so satisfying, like you say, when you can't wait to give it to her, because you know what I mean? So yeah, it'll be like that.
Yep. All right, man. Very cool.
As always, a pleasure. And let's do more like top 10 shoppy lists and stuff like that over the course of this
recommendations and
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. Talk to you later.
A pleasure. All right.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode of Relentless Geekery, and that you'll come back every week and listen and join us in our conversation about all the exciting things in the world of geeks and the fun that we have, whether it be music or the movies or comics or role-playing games or board games and video games. We talk about so much, and we love having everybody come with us. Please, if you did enjoy the show and you like listening to us each week, give us a review, give us some thumbs up or stars, because that helps other people discover us and helps the podcast grow. And we also are starting to add some geeky, unique t-shirts. If you go to our website, relentlessgeekery.com, you'll see we have a shop with some t-shirts in it. And these are some fun sayings, some fun designs we've had and talked about on the show. You can also get a Relentless Geekery t-shirt, and this would also help support the show, as there are some costs with hosting and the software that we use. So it'd be great if everyone checked that out also. But please, we hope you come back next week and give us a review, pass it off to your friends, let them know. Join us as we talk more about the wonderful world of geekdom.
You have been listening to the Relentless Geekery podcast. Come back next week and join Alan and Steven's conversation on geek topics of the week.